The music was soft, romantic, the kind that makes everyone in the hall smile, except her. Samantha Cole sat at the farthest table of the glittering ballroom, her wine glass half empty, her smile long gone. She shouldn't have come. But how do you say no when the invitation comes from your ex? Especially when he's marrying someone else. The chandelier lights shimmered above her like mocking stars, and the laughter from the head table stung worse than any insult. She fixed her gaze on her napkin, folded perfectly in her lap, and tried not to look up, tried not to see him. But she did. There he was, Ethan Grant, the man she'd once planned to marry, standing beside his new bride, looking like the perfect picture of success and happiness, his tuxedo crisp, his grin easy, as if the 3 years they'd spent together were nothing more than a deleted scene. Samantha's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Her throat burned. She shouldn't still care. She shouldn't still feel like this, but heartbreak doesn't check your calendar. It doesn't care how many months have passed. It just waits, quietly, until nights like this. A waiter passed by, refilling glasses. She nodded politely, then caught a few glances from nearby tables. Whispers. Pity. She could feel it. The ex-girlfriend. The one he left when he made it big. The one who couldn't move on. They weren't wrong. Samantha glanced at her phone. 10:34 p.m., just an hour more. Then she could leave, blame it on an early meeting, and disappear back into her small apartment and even smaller world. But fate wasn't ready to let her go. Mind if I sit here? The voice came from behind, smooth, low, and calm, cutting through the music like velvet over steel. She turned, startled, and froze. A man stood there, tall, sharply dressed in a dark navy suit that probably cost more than her month's rent. He wasn't smiling, but his eyes, deep gray with a glint of mischief, made it clear he knew exactly what he was doing. This seat taken? Samantha blinked. No, not really. He pulled out the chair beside her and sat down, like he belonged there, like he'd been waiting for this moment all night. I figured you could use a rescue, he said, nodding toward the dance floor where the bride and groom twirled under the spotlight. I'm guessing that's your ex? Samantha almost choked on her drink. Excuse me? He smiled slightly, eyes still on the crowd. Don't worry. I'm not judging, just observing. You've got that look. What look? The one people wear when they're pretending they don't care? Her heart skipped. She looked away. You don't know me. Maybe not, he said. But I'm good at reading people. She gave him a side glance. Then what's your story, Mr. Mind Reader? Adrian Black, CEO, investor, professional escape artist. He grinned, as if the last part explained everything. And tonight, I'm escaping a very boring table full of fake friends. Samantha's brow arched. CEO, huh? Of what exactly? Blackstone Holdings. He said it casually as if it weren't one of the top investment firms in New York. Her stomach fluttered. That Blackstone. She suddenly became very aware of her thrift store dress and the way her heels pinched. She forced a laugh. Well, Mr. Blackstone, you've officially found the worst table in the room. Perfect, he said. I prefer quiet corners. Easier to talk. Talk. About what? He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. About why a beautiful woman like you looks like she's one heartbreak away from torching this place. She gasped, half offended, half flattered. Wow, subtle, he chuckled softly. Didn't say I was subtle, just honest. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The band shifted into another slow song. Couples filled the dance floor, and there she was, sitting across from a stranger with eyes that looked like they'd seen everything and cared about nothing. Adrian Black wasn't like the other men here. He didn't wear his wealth. He wore his power, quietly, effortlessly, and yet something in his gaze softened when he looked at her. So, he began, swirling his drink. What's your name, mystery woman? Samantha. Pretty name. He paused. Suits you. She tried to smile, but it came out tired. You say that to all the women you rescue at weddings? Only the ones who look like they'd rather disappear. That made her laugh. for the first time all night. Maybe it was the champagne. Maybe it was exhaustion, but she found herself talking about her job at the design firm, about her life in the city, about how everything had felt small since him. Adrian listened, really listened, not interrupting once. And when she finally went quiet, he said something she didn't expect. "You know what I see?" She frowned. "What?" "Someone who survived something that should have broken her." Her breath hitched. No one had ever said it like that before. Not her friends. Not her family, certainly not her ex. Adrian's tone softened. "You don't have to prove you're okay." "Not tonight." Samantha's throat tightened. She blinked fast. "Why are you being so nice to me?" "Because I know what it feels like," he said quietly. "To sit alone in a room full of people and still feel invisible." Something in his voice cracked, and for a split second, the confident CEO mask slipped, revealing something raw. Loneliness, familiar, painful, just like hers. Then, out of nowhere, a voice over the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the happy couple, Mr. and Mrs. Ethan Grant." The crowd erupted in applause. Samantha's heart twisted. She forced herself to clap. Adrian watched her carefully. "You want to get out of here? What?" "Come on," he said, standing. "Let's take a walk before you drown in fake smiles." She hesitated. She didn't know him, but staying here, watching Ethan kiss his new wife, felt unbearable. So she stood. They slipped out through a side door into the cool night air. The city skyline sparkled across the bay, the sound of waves soft against the docks. Samantha breathed in deeply. The first real breath she'd taken all night. "Better?" he asked. She nodded. "Much." He leaned against the railing, hands in his pockets. "You know, sometimes pretending you're fine is harder than actually being fine." "I've had a lot of practice." He glanced at her. "Then maybe tonight you don't have to pretend." She looked at him, really looked. The faint smirk, the strong jaw, the eyes that hid entire stories. And before she could stop herself, she said it. "Why do I feel like you're running from something too?" He smirked faintly. "Maybe I am. What is it?" He exhaled. "My ex-fiancée's inside. Married my business partner last month." "I didn't know she'd be here tonight." Samantha's eyes widened. "You're kidding." "Wish I was. For a moment." The irony hit them both. Two broken people, hiding from the same kind of pain, in the same place. And then, he said the words that would change everything. "Tell you what," Adrian said, straightening. "If she sees me, she'll think I'm alone. And if your ex sees you, he'll think the same." Samantha frowned. "Okay, so..." He smiled, leaning closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Pretend I'm your boyfriend tonight." Her heart stopped. "What?" "Or husband," he added with a teasing smirk. "Whichever sells better." She blinked, caught between laughter and disbelief. "You're insane." "Maybe, but admit it. It'll make him jealous." She hesitated, then laughed. "All right, Mr. CEO. Let's make your ex and mine regret everything." Adrian held out his hand. "Deal." Her fingers trembled as she took it. Deal. And just like that, what started as a night of heartbreak turned into something else, something dangerous, something electric. As they walked back into the ballroom arm in arm, every eye turned toward them. The whispers began instantly. The lonely woman from table 17, now with the most powerful man in the room, and from across the hall. Ethan Grant froze mid-laugh. He saw her. He saw them. And in that moment, Samantha Cole didn't feel invisible anymore. The moment they walked back into the ballroom, everything changed. Eyes turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. The lonely woman who sat alone an hour ago now had the most powerful man in the room holding her hand, and Adrian Black knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't just walk beside Samantha. He owned the space. Shoulders squared, confident smirk in place, one hand lightly on her waist. Every step said, "She's with me." The music slowed, the lights dimmed, and before Samantha could catch her breath, the DJ's voice boomed through the mic. "Let's welcome our next couple to the floor." Her heart stopped. "Us?" she whispered. Adrian grinned. Unless you'd rather sit back and let your ex wonder why you're glowing, Samantha froze, then exhaled sharply. Fine. But if I step on your foot, I'll consider it part of the charm. He offered his hand again, and this time when she took it, the world blurred. The chandeliers, the laughter, the stairs, all disappeared. There was only him, and the music, and the way his hand fit perfectly against the small of her back. They moved together, slowly at first, his movements sure, guiding her with ease. Samantha tried to keep her distance, but every time he leaned in, her pulse betrayed her. Relax, Adrian whispered near her ear. I've got you. The word sent a shiver down her spine. I'm not used to this, she murmured. To dancing? To pretending. He smiled faintly, eyes catching hers. Then let me handle the pretending. He spun her gently. The emerald fabric of her dress catching the light. Gasps rippled through the crowd. From the head table, Ethan's face tightened. Barely, but she saw it. Samantha bit her lip. He's watching, Adrian smirked. Good. He leaned closer, his voice a whisper of danger. Then let's give him a show. When the song ended, Samantha was breathless, not from the dance, but from him, from how close he'd been. From how steady his eyes stayed on hers. Even when the world spun, he leaned down slightly, murmuring, Smile. You just made half this room jealous. She looked up at him, and for the first time that night, she smiled for real. But as they made their way back to their table, a woman's voice sliced through the moment. Adrian. He froze. Samantha turned to see a stunning brunette approaching. Tall, flawless, diamond bracelet glinting under the lights. Every eye followed her. Didn't expect to see you here, the woman said smoothly. I thought you'd sworn off weddings. Adrian's jaw tightened. Some are harder to avoid than others. Her eyes flicked to Samantha. And this must be? Samantha hesitated, but Adrian didn't. He slid an arm around her shoulders. My wife, he said. Samantha almost choked. Wife? The woman blinked, momentarily thrown off balance, before recovering with a practiced smile. How lovely. I had no idea you'd remarried. Adrian's voice was calm. We like to keep things private. The woman's expression didn't quite mask her bitterness. Of course you do. Congratulations. And with a final daggered glance, she walked away. Samantha exhaled only when she was gone. What was that? She whispered. That, Adrian said, straightening his jacket, was my ex-fiancé. Her eyes widened. The one who married my business partner? Yeah, that one. Silence. Then she couldn't help it. She laughed. Wow, we really are the disaster table. He chuckled softly. At least we're in good company. Later that night, they stepped out onto the terrace again, escaping the crowd. The city stretched before them. Endless, glittering, full of noise and secrets. Samantha leaned on the railing. So, Mr. CEO, that was quite a performance, he smirked. You're welcome, she rolled her eyes. You called me your wife. It worked, didn't it? That's not the point. Then what is the point? He asked, turning toward her. She struggled to answer, because the truth was, she didn't know. All she knew was that when he looked at her like that, steady, intense, her heart forgot what it was supposed to do. Look, she said finally, I appreciate the help, really. But this, whatever this is, it's just pretend. Of course. His tone was light, but his eyes weren't. Purely strategic. Right, strategic, but neither of them believed it. As the wedding wound down, Adrian offered to walk her out. She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, her ride hadn't arrived yet. The night was cold, her arms bare. Without a word, Adrian took off his jacket and draped it around her shoulders. Thanks, she said softly. He smiled, not the charming CEO smile. Something warmer, real. You know, he said quietly, you're stronger than you think. She frowned. You barely know me. Maybe. but I know what it looks like when someone's been through fire and is still standing." The words hit her harder than she expected. Before she could respond, a car horn honked. Her ride. She slipped off his jacket, holding it out. "I should go. Keep it," he said. "You'll need it more than I do." Their eyes met, for a moment too long. Then she turned and got into the car. Through the window, she saw him still standing there, hands in his pockets, watching her leave, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she wished she didn't have to. The next morning, Samantha's phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You left your earring in my jacket pocket." Her heart skipped. She hadn't even realized it was missing. "Unknown number, again." "Don't worry. Mrs. Black, I'll keep it safe until you come to claim it," Samantha groaned, half laughing, half blushing. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" She texted back. Seconds later, the reply, "You have no idea." A week later. She was back in her office. Graphic design. Midtown Manhattan. Normal life. Deadlines. Coffee. Small talk. At least until the receptionist's voice came through her intercom. "Sam, there's someone here to see you." "Who?" "He says his name is Adrian Black." Her heart dropped. No, she whispered, standing abruptly. Too late. The elevator doors opened, and there he was. Perfect suit. Lazy confidence. That same teasing smile. "Morning, Mrs. Black," he said, stepping into her office. Her co-workers froze. Whispers started instantly. Samantha's face burned. "You cannot call me that here," he chuckled. "Sorry, habit. What are you doing here?" "I told you," he said, placing a small velvet box on her desk. Returning your earring, she stared at it. "You came all the way here for that." "Well," he said casually, "and to ask if you'd join me for a business dinner tonight." "Business dinner?" He nodded. "A networking event. My PR team got a little too excited after seeing us together at the wedding. Apparently people think I got married in secret." Her jaw dropped. "You're kidding. I wish I was. So you want me to play along?" he finished, smirking. "Just for one night," she blinked. "You're insane," he tilted his head. "Maybe, but I'm offering you a 5-star dinner, free champagne, and revenge-level satisfaction." Samantha hesitated. She should say no. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe something far more dangerous, made her say, "Fine, one night." "Perfect," Adrian said, that glint back in his eyes. "Just try not to fall in love with me before dessert." That night, the city glittered brighter than ever. Samantha wore black silk, her hair curled. Her confidence rebuilt, and as she stepped out of the car beside Adrian, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Power. He offered his arm. "Ready, Mrs. Black?" She shot him a look. "You're enjoying this way too much." Guilty. Inside, flashbulbs went off. Reporters whispered. Adrian Black and his wife. Samantha forced a smile, playing her part. But somewhere between the laughter, the fake touches, and the way he looked at her when no one else was watching, the line between pretending and feeling began to blur. Because when his hand brushed hers beneath the table, it didn't feel like an act. It felt real. The ballroom had started to spin, not from the champagne. She hadn't touched a drop, but from the weight of all those memories, every smile, every photo, every whispered congratulations aimed at the man who used to be hers. Maya adjusted the strap of her fading lilac dress. It wasn't designer. It wasn't meant to be. She'd bought it off a clearance rack 2 nights ago. Because when your ex-husband sends an invitation with +1 optional, you don't say no. You just survive it. The laughter around her was sharp. Silver spoons clinked against crystal. The bride, his new wife, was glowing under the chandelier's golden haze. And Maya? She sat alone, invisible, until someone's shadow fell across her table. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered. Every inch of him sculpted from silence. Dark charcoal suit. No tie. Eyes like ice that had seen too many winters and melted for none. He looked like he didn't belong here. Too refined for the chaos. Too cold for the warmth, and yet, somehow the entire room seemed to orbit around him. Her heart paused, She recognized him. Instantly Adrian Stone, the CEO of Stone Enterprises, the man whose name built skyscrapers and broke markets. He was infamous for deals that crushed competitors, and for never, ever smiling. Maya had read about him once in a business article. Now he was standing in front of her, hands in pockets, eyes unreadable. "Is this seat taken?" His voice was low, controlled. Not a question, really. More like a statement waiting for her permission to be ignored. Maya blinked. No, go ahead." He sat, smooth, effortless. The kind of grace that came from owning every room he entered, even this one. For a moment, silence pressed between them. Only the music filled it. Slow jazz, romantic, taunting. "Rough night?" he said finally. Maya looked up, startled. "Excuse me?" He didn't look at her. Just swirled the champagne in his glass, eyes fixed on the dance floor. People who sit alone at weddings usually have stories. Yours looks like a long one. Her throat tightened. "Wow. You always open conversations like a therapist." He smirked, barely. "Only when I see someone pretending not to break." The words hit harder than she expected. She turned away, her voice soft. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to," he said. "Pain introduces itself." Maya laughed, a dry, disbelieving sound. "You're very poetic for a man in a $3,000 suit." He finally looked at her. And that was worse, because his eyes didn't just look. They searched. "Observation is good business," he said simply. She rolled her eyes. "So what, you're doing charity tonight? Sitting with the lonely girl?" "Not charity." He leaned back, calm. "Strategy." Her brow furrowed. "Strategy?" He tilted his head toward the front of the room. "Your ex is the groom." Her pulse froze. "How do you—" He cut her off. "He keeps glancing here. Every few minutes. Trying not to. That's how I knew. She didn't want to look. But she did. And there he was, Daniel. Laughing. Glass raised. Eyes flicking toward her table for a fraction of a second. Adrian's voice dropped lower. "He wants to see if you're miserable." Her chest tightened. "And you think I'm supposed to care?" "I think," Adrian said, eyes steady, "you should make him wish he'd never let you go." The words landed like lightning. "What are you saying?" she asked. He turned to her, slow, deliberate. "Pretend I'm your husband tonight." Her breath caught. "Excuse me?" He leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Let's give him a show he won't forget." The sentence hung between them like forbidden heat. Maya's heart hammered. "You can't be serious." "I don't joke," he said, "and I don't like seeing arrogant men win." She tried to laugh it off. "You don't even know me." "Why would you—" "Because," he said, eyes flicking to Daniel again, "he doesn't deserve your tears. And I don't like wasted potential." He stood up, held out his hand, cold, confident, commanding. "Come on," he said. "Dance with me." The band shifted to a slower tune. "Can't help falling in love. How ironic." Maya froze. "No, people will—" "That's the point." His tone was calm, but his gaze burned. For a second she hesitated. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, to protect herself. But something about his presence, the authority, the control, made her legs move before her fear could stop them. She slipped, her hand into his, and it was electric. They walked onto the dance floor. Every head turned. Her ex's laughter died mid-sentence. Adrian placed his hand at her waist, firm, steady, almost possessive. Maya's pulse was everywhere. "You're trembling," he murmured. "I'm regretting this." Too late. He pulled her closer. "Now smile." She forced a shaky smile. And when she did, something in his eyes changed. Just a flicker. "But real. Better," he said. The music swelled around them. Her heart raced. People whispered. Cameras clicked. And suddenly, for the first time that night, Maya didn't feel invisible. As they moved in rhythm, Adrian's face stayed unreadable, but his jaw was tense, like he was fighting something internal. "You're very convincing," she whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Then, "I've had practice pretending," she frowned. "Pretending what?" He looked away. "That I don't feel alone in a room full of people." That silenced her. The song ended. But he didn't let go. Not yet. Applause rippled through the crowd. Her ex looked furious. Adrian leaned in, his voice barely audible. Mission accomplished. He led her back to the table. She sat down, breathless. He remained standing, buttoning his jacket again. Perfect composure restored. "You're welcome," he said. "For what?" she asked. "For making him jealous." She shook her head, half laughing. "You're unbelievable. Efficient," he corrected. "Why help me?" she asked quietly. He paused. "Because sometimes people need a stranger to remind them of their worth." Then, as if the moment had never existed, he stepped back. "I'll send someone to drop you home," he said. "Wait." He stopped, turned halfway. "What's your name?" she asked, though she already knew. He met her eyes. "Adrian," he said. "Adrian Stone." And just like that, he walked away, into the crowd, into the shadows, leaving her with a pulse that refused to slow down. That night, as Maya sat in the car Adrian's driver sent, she replayed every second. The dance, the whisper, the way his hand had fit around hers like it belonged there. She didn't understand him, didn't know why a man like that, cold, powerful, untouchable, would even notice her, but something deep inside whispered, "This isn't over, not yet." Their eyes meet across the marble floor, and everything they tried to bury resurfaces. The lie they once told, pretend, "I'm your husband tonight," suddenly doesn't feel like a lie anymore. The city hummed outside. The tall glass windows of the Langford Gallery. Inside, light spilled across polished marble and fractured in the mirrored edges of 100 frames. People drifted through with wine glasses and quiet smiles, pausing before paintings about hope after loss. Maya moved among them, her volunteer badge glinting in the low light. She adjusted a display card, straightened a donation form, smiled when someone thanked her, automatic gestures. Practiced calm, but underneath the soft evening glow, her pulse refused to match the serenity of the art around her. It had been 6 weeks since the wedding, 6 weeks since that impossible night when a stranger, no, not a stranger, Adrian Voss, her ex's best man and the company's untouchable CEO, had leaned down and whispered, "Pretend I'm your husband tonight." 6 weeks, and she still heard it sometimes, in dreams, in echoes, in songs that played when she least expected them. She told herself it meant nothing. It was kindness. Maybe pity, maybe a whim. He'd been cold, detached, out of her league, and she'd been the woman sitting alone at her ex's wedding table, too proud to cry, too tired to fight. The universe should have ended their story there, but fate loves sequels. A familiar baritone voice broke the air. "Do you still arrange chaos into order wherever you go?" Her breath caught before her body turned. Across the small crowd, standing beneath a canvas painted in shades of midnight blue and gold, was Adrian Voss, tailored suit. Hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable, except for his eyes. They met hers like he'd been waiting for this moment. Maya's fingers tightened around the clipboard. Her first instinct, walk away. Her second, pretend she didn't care. Her third, the one that betrayed her, was to stare back. He crossed the distance slowly, like the world might shatter if he rushed. Each step echoed faintly against marble. Every guess seemed to fade into background blur. When he stopped in front of her, she found her voice. "I didn't think CEOs attended charity nights without a press release." His lips curved, almost imperceptibly. "I didn't think volunteers avoided eye contact like it's a crime." Her heart kicked against her ribs. "I'm working, so am I," he said quietly, gaze steady. "Trying to forget a night that keeps interrupting board meetings." The words hit harder than she wanted them to. Her throat went dry. She looked away, at the painting behind him, at anything that wasn't his face. That night was pretend, was it? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of all the things they hadn't said. A piano melody drifted from the corner of the room. Slow, fragile, deliberate. The kind of song that made people remember. Adrian looked around at the art. You chose the perfect place for a second act. This isn't an act, she said, forcing composure. It's a fundraiser for children's therapy programs, I donated. She blinked. You what? He nodded toward the placard near the entrance. Major sponsors, Voss Industries. Her stomach flipped. You knew I'd be here? No, he said. Then softer, but I hoped. For a second. The air shifted, not warmer, not colder, just different. He studied her like he was memorizing a new painting. You look better than you did that night, he said finally. Better, less haunted. Maya laughed under her breath. You don't even know me, Mr. Voss. I know what loneliness looks like, he replied. And I know when it starts to fade. Something inside her trembled. Not fear, not pain. Just recognition, but she refused to let him see it. Don't psychoanalyze me in front of Monet reproductions, she said. Some of us prefer to keep our chaos private. He tilted his head. And yet you put it on display for charity. Her composure cracked into a reluctant smile. You're insufferable, and you're not answering. To what question? Why that night felt real. She froze, because it did. Because for a few hours, she hadn't been the discarded ex or the struggling single mother. She'd been seen, but she couldn't say that. She deflected. Maybe you're confusing gratitude with emotion. His eyes didn't move. And maybe you're terrified of either. The sound of a cork popping from a champagne bottle cut through the moment. Drawing eyes briefly their way, Maya exhaled shaky, then turned as if to leave, but Adrian stepped sideways, not blocking, just there. Close enough for their reflections to overlap in the gallery's glass wall. He looked ahead, not at her. They say the truth hides in reflections. What do you see? Maya glanced at the glass. Two silhouettes, his tall and composed, hers smaller, uncertain, both surrounded by fractured light. I see two people pretending not to remember, she murmured. He smiled faintly. Then we're both terrible actors. Her laugh was quiet, involuntary, and in that sound, something softened between them, the kind of warmth that scares people used to cold. A voice interrupted. Ms. Lane, we need help near the silent auction table. Maya blinked, grounding herself. Duty calls. She stepped away, but his voice followed her, low and even. I'll be here when you're done. It wasn't a question. It was a promise, or a challenge. She told herself she wouldn't look back. She lasted 8 seconds. When she did, he was still watching, not impatiently but intently, like someone studying a puzzle piece he refused to misplace again. Later that night, after the event quieted and guests trickled out, Maya gathered donation envelopes into neat stacks. The gallery had emptied to echoes and half-finished glasses of wine. Her heels clicked softly on the marble. She turned a corner, and there he was again. He held a child's drawing. Framed beside the exit, crayon hearts and stick figures under the words, "Safe now." Your charity chose a good theme, he said. Healing, she nodded. It's why I joined. For who? She hesitated. My daughter. She went through a lot when her father left. He didn't interrupt. Just listened. No boardroom sharpness, no CEO mask. Just quiet. When she finally met his gaze again, the air felt fragile. I never meant for that night to matter, she admitted. But sometimes it feels like the only time someone saw me without pity. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something deep flickered there. Recognition. Maybe remorse. I didn't see pity, he said softly. I saw strength pretending to be fine. Their eyes held, unbroken, unguarded. Seconds stretched. Somewhere outside, rain began to fall, tracing thin silver lines down the glass. It shimmered like a curtain between them and the world. He finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Maya, what if the lie wasn't a lie? Her heartbeat stumbled. Don't. Tell me you didn't feel it too, and I'll walk away. She couldn't. Not honestly. But she did what people do when the truth is too dangerous. She smiled. Small, polite, almost perfect. Good night. Mr. Voss. She turned toward the door, away from the ache, away from what might have been. Behind her, his voice was low, almost to himself. I'll find another reason to see you. Outside, the rain turned the city into a mirror. She walked through it, the drops cool on her skin, the lights blurring into gold streaks. In every reflection, glass, puddle, window, she saw two silhouettes overlapping, and no matter how far she went, the echo of his whisper followed. Sometimes a lie is only the truth waiting for courage. And for Maya Lane, courage was coming, slower than rain, but just as inevitable. She's been standing at the far end of the room for almost an hour, adjusting flower vases and greeting guests with a practiced smile. It's easier to keep her hands busy than her heart quiet. Every time she forces a laugh, it feels a little hollow. But she's trying. She promised herself she would. It's been weeks since that wedding night. Weeks since the lie. Pretend I'm your husband tonight. It was supposed to be forgotten. It should have been forgotten. Yet sometimes when she's alone, she still hears his voice, low, steady, protective, like it belonged to someone who meant it. She hates that memory. She hates how it still makes her chest tighten. She adjusts the name tag on her dress. Volunteer coordinator. That title feels safe, controlled. Far from the chaos of that night, then she hears it. That voice, low, confident, unmistakable. Her hand freezes on the vase. She turns slowly, almost afraid to confirm what her heart already knows. Across the gallery, surrounded by polished laughter and expensive suits, he's there, the CEO, the man who turned her world upside down for one night, and then walked away as if nothing happened. He looks exactly the same, or maybe more dangerous. Sharp black suit, silver tie, a calm expression carved from ice. But it's his eyes that stop her breath. The same deep, unreadable ones that once looked at her and said, "You're safe with me." She almost forgets to blink for a second. It's like the crowd disappears. There's just the hum of music and the space between them. He's speaking to someone, a donor, maybe a board member. Yet he's distracted. She can tell. His gaze flickers toward her once, then again. Like a secret he's not ready to admit. She looks away first. Of course she does. But her pulse is already racing. She tries to focus on her checklist, her clipboard, anything, but her eyes betray her again. Drifting toward him, he's still watching. For the first time since that night, she realizes something she didn't expect. He remembers. Not just the lie, not just her. He remembers the feeling. The moment when they stood side by side, pretending to be husband and wife, and for a heartbeat, it felt real. Now in the middle of this glittering event, that same unspoken electricity hums between them. Alive, dangerous, undeniable. He excuses himself from his group and begins to walk, not in her direction, not yet, but close enough that the air changes. The distance shrinks. Every step feels like a question he's not sure he should ask. She swallows hard, pretending to fix the flowers again. He passes behind her once, his reflection ghosting in the glass. Neither speaks, but the silence says everything. It's charged, familiar, unfinished. He moves through the crowd like he belongs there. And he does. Every nod, every handshake, every polite smile, practiced perfection, but his eyes. They're elsewhere, drawn unwillingly. To her, she feels it before she sees it. That sharp awareness that someone is looking, not just glancing, but remembering it's magnetic, that pull, invisible, yet undeniable. She steadies her breath, pretending to be absorbed in her volunteer duties. The clipboard in her hand trembles slightly. She forces a smile as an older woman thanks her for organizing the event. Her voice sounds fine. Too fine. But inside, her heartbeat feels like it's echoing in her ears. She turns again, and this time, he's closer. Only a few steps away now, standing beside a large canvas of golden brushstrokes. The painting's title reads, "What Was Lost?" Fitting. She thinks bitterly. He's pretending to study the art. but his focus is unmistakable. She catches him watching her reflection in the glass frame. And when their eyes finally meet, not through mirrors, but directly, the world sharpens into silence. That same look from weeks ago, the one that made her forget who she was supposed to be. His expression doesn't move, but something in his gaze does. A flicker of memory, of regret, of something he shouldn't be feeling. Her throat tightens. She looks away, but not fast enough. The moment leaves a mark. She can feel it. He starts walking toward her now, slowly, like a man rehearsing words he's not sure he has the right to say. The crowd parts for him, unintentionally. Naturally, he carries that quiet authority that makes people step aside without realizing why. And when he finally stops in front of her, everything she wanted to say evaporates. Still volunteering at saving the world? His tone is calm, maybe even teasing, but there's something softer under it. Something unfamiliar, she exhales, managing a small, polite smile. Only when billionaires aren't around, to ruin the peace. A flicker, a real one, curves at the corner of his lips. That almost smile she saw once before, it's enough to make her chest ache. I didn't expect to see you here, she says, trying to sound composed, but her voice dips slightly, betraying her nerves. I could say the same, he replies, though fate has a strange sense of humor. There it is again, that word. Fate, the one that keeps finding new ways to put them in the same place, no matter how far apart they pretend to be. She folds her arms, defensive, like armor. Don't tell me you suddenly care about charity events. He glances at the painting beside them. What was lost? Maybe I do, he says quietly. Then, after a pause, or maybe I came because I couldn't stop thinking about that night. The words hit harder than they should. Her heart skips, and she hates that it does. She wants to look away, to end the conversation, but his gaze holds her there. It's not arrogant this time. It's searching. The music swells in the background. Slow jazz. Delicate piano around them. Laughter and clinking glasses fill the air, but somehow, none of it reaches her. It's just his voice, low and steady, and her pulse, betraying every ounce of calm she tries to fake. She swallows. You don't have to say things you don't mean. It was just a lie, remember? One night. Nothing more. He takes a small breath. Not enough to be noticed by anyone else, but she sees it. The hesitation. The restraint, maybe, he murmurs. But sometimes, lies have a way of feeling real. Her eyes flicker to him. Sharp, uncertain, the words linger between them. Heavy, almost tender, and for the first time, she doesn't know what to say. The silence that follows his words feels heavier than the crowd around them. She takes a step back, not physically, but emotionally, like she's trying to retreat into the safety of logic. It wasn't real, she insists, her voice softer now. It was pretend. You said so yourself. He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he turns his gaze toward the next painting. A portrait of two figures standing apart. Faces blurred, yet their shadows almost touching. The title reads, Almost. He exhales, almost a whisper. Do you ever wonder why some things pretend better than the truth? She blinks. He's not the cold CEO now. Not the man who built walls with his words and weapons with his silence. He looks human, haunted even. She tries to keep her composure. You really shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because you don't mean them, he turns to her. What if I do? The gallery seems to hold its breath. No one's watching, yet the moment feels too exposed. She folds her arms, hiding the tremor in her hands. You walked away that night. No words, no explanation. He nods once, guilt flickering across his face. I thought it was better that way. For who? For both of us. Her eyes flash. You don't get to decide what's better for me. The words hit him harder than she expects. He takes a slow breath, his jaw tightening. For a heartbeat, he looks like he might walk away again, like he's fighting himself. Then, instead, he steps closer to the painting, his voice low. When you looked at me that night, you didn't look at me like everyone else does. She laughs softly. not out of humor but disbelief. I looked at you like a man pretending to be someone else. That's all. Exactly. His tone sharpens, but not in anger, in emotion. For once, I wasn't the CEO. I wasn't the headlines, or the pressure, or the deals. You looked at me like I was just human. Her heart stumbles. She wasn't prepared for honesty, not from him. The gallery lights shift as the jazz fades into a softer tune. A woman nearby takes photos. Waiters move silently with trays of champagne. But here, in this small pocket of stillness, it's just two people standing in front of a painting called Almost, trapped between everything they said and everything they never did. She forces herself to break the silence. Then why not say this before? Why now? He hesitates. Because I didn't know I'd see you again. Then, maybe fate really does have a sense of humor, she murmurs. Their eyes meet again. Longer this time, it's not anger anymore, it's something deeper. She remembers the warmth of his voice at the wedding, how it wrapped around her like safety in the middle of chaos. He remembers how she smiled, not like everyone else who wanted something from him, but like someone who saw him. Now that memory feels alive again. Breathing between them, he looks down, trying to mask it. You've changed. So have you. Not enough, he says quietly. Her lips part, not for words, just a breath. It's the kind of silence that says everything language fails to carry. He glances toward the exit. A reflex. An escape route. But he doesn't move. Something keeps him there. And when she finally speaks, her voice trembles slightly. Why are you here, really? He looks at her for a long time before answering. Maybe I came to donate, he says. Maybe I came to look at art. Then, softer. Or maybe I came because I couldn't stop replaying a lie that shouldn't have felt this real. Her breath catches, and for a brief second, just one, she lets her eyes linger on him without fighting it. There's no touch. No closeness, just two souls, standing on opposite sides of the same truth, pretending they aren't breaking in the same way. The music shifts. A slow, aching melody from the grand piano rolls through the gallery, soft, intimate, as if the sound itself knows how heavy the air has become. Guests drift toward the center where the host, a silver-haired curator, is preparing to unveil the evening's centerpiece painting. The murmur of laughter fades into a quiet hum. The glass ceiling glows with city light. The skyline outside looks like a sea of constellations. Rebecca doesn't move. She's still standing beside him, her pulse loud in her ears. He doesn't speak either. They both stare ahead, pretending to watch the unveiling, pretending not to notice the gravity between them. Then the curtain drops. The painting is massive, a stormy seascape, waves colliding beneath a dim horizon. Two figures cling to opposite rocks, separated by the tide. The plaque beneath reads, "What we never said." For a long, still moment, neither of them breathes. It's almost cruel how perfectly it mirrors them. So close. Yet unreachable. He's the first to whisper. Funny, he murmurs, almost to himself. Art always finds a way to mock reality. She turns her head slightly, catching the faint reflection of his face in the glass, the sharpness of his jaw, the faint weariness around his eyes. But it's his expression that holds her, that quiet ache of someone who carries too many what-ifs. Maybe, she says softly, it's not mocking us. Maybe it's warning us, he glances at her. Of what? Of what happens when silence wins. The words hang there. She hadn't meant for them to sound like that, so raw, so exposed. But they do. And something shifts in his eyes. He takes a slow breath, his voice barely audible. I didn't stay silent because I didn't care, Rebecca. I stayed silent because I cared too much. Her heart clenches. That's not an excuse, I know, he says simply. It's the truth. She looks back at the painting, the distance between the two figures, the waves swallowing their chance to reach each other. You think honesty matters now? She whispers. After everything? His tone softens. I think it's the only thing that does. For a few seconds they say nothing, but their eyes meet. And that's where the real conversation happens. His gaze lingers on her like a confession. Steady, searching, unapologetic. Hers trembles between anger and longing. They both remember the night at the wedding, how pretending to be husband and wife had felt dangerously real, how a lie had briefly become the only truth that made sense. And now, here they are, strangers in a crowd, bound by a moment neither of them can undo. She turns away first. "You should go back to your world, Mr. Hayes." He doesn't flinch at the formality. Instead, he says quietly, "It never felt like mine." "Until that night," she exhales shakily. "You can't say things like that in public. Then look at me and tell me you don't feel it too." She freezes. His tone isn't commanding. It's desperate. The voice of a man trying to reach her before the tide rises. Her throat tightens. She wants to lie, to protect herself. But when she finally meets his eyes, the lie dies in her chest. Their eye contact holds, sharp, magnetic, unbroken. The crowd fades into blur, the music distant. It's just them, staring across a line drawn in emotion instead of distance. He finally breaks it, looking down. His jaw tense. "You used to look at me like I wasn't the man everyone whispered about." She swallows hard. "You used to be someone who didn't need to hide." He almost smiles. Not the confident CEO smile, but something smaller, sadder. "Maybe I'm still pretending." The curator's voice echoes. This next piece is titled Reunion, dedicated to the artist's late wife. The guests applaud softly. Rebecca's eyes flick toward the painting, a man standing before an empty chair. The simplicity of it hurts. Without realizing it, her hand trembles against the edge of the champagne flute she's holding. He notices. Always does. He doesn't reach for her. He just whispers, "You're shaking." "I'm fine." "You've never been good at lying," he says quietly, and she finally lets out a small, broken laugh. "You'd know. You're the one who taught me how." That hurts him more than she expects. Their eyes meet again, not fiery now, but tired, emotional, honest. In that fragile silence, everything unspoken stands between them. Regret, memory, longing, and the ghost of a love that never had the chance to live. A voice from the stage breaks the spell, the host thanking donors, the sound of polite applause rising around them. He straightens his cufflinks, retreating behind his calm. "You're right," he says. "This isn't the place." "No," she whispers, eyes on the floor. "It never is." He starts to walk away, and she lets him, even though every cell in her body screams not to. As he disappears into the glitter of the gala, she looks back at the painting, the one called What We Never Said. A single tear slides down her cheek, catching the golden light, because some lies were meant to protect you, and some were just love stories that never got to finish their sentence. A week later, the city had returned to its usual rhythm, too fast, too loud, too indifferent. Yet for Rebecca, every streetlight felt like a memory waiting to flicker back to life. Since the gala, she'd thrown herself into work. Extra hours, new projects, anything to drown out the echo of his voice in her head. But silence had a way of chasing her down. Even the elevator rides at Meridian Publishing felt heavier. Every time the doors opened, she half expected to see him standing there. Sharp suit, unreadable face, that quiet gravity that made everyone else feel like background noise. But he wasn't there. Not until today. The morning had started like any other. Coffee, deadlines. A meeting she wasn't ready for, until her assistant burst in, eyes wide, voice a whisper of disbelief. "Rebecca!" "He's back." Her pen froze mid-signature. "Who?" "Mr. Hayes. He's here, in the conference room." The board meeting was rescheduled. For a moment, Rebecca couldn't breathe. Her pulse skipped. Her mind tried to catch up, but her body already knew. That magnetic, unbearable awareness of him had returned before logic did. She took a deep breath, straightened her blazer, and walked out. He stood at the far end of the table, giving instructions to two executives. Calm, controlled. The perfect image of leadership. But when she entered, the moment his gaze lifted, the entire room shifted. Their eyes met, just for a second. But that second hit like lightning. He blinked once, the barest crack in his composure, then nodded politely. Ms. Walsh. The title cut sharper than she expected. Ms. Walsh, not Rebecca. Professional, distant, pretending the past didn't exist. She forced a smile. Mr. Hayes, and sat. The meeting went on. Figures, projections, strategies. Voices blurred into static. She kept her focus on her notes, never lifting her gaze. But she could feel his eyes on her every few seconds. A rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. When the meeting ended, people filtered out, laughter, chairs scraping. The usual corporate noise, but she lingered, gathering her papers too slowly, and he didn't leave either. Still volunteering at art galleries? He asked quietly. Her head snapped up. The question was casual, but the tone wasn't. She hesitated. Sometimes, why? He gave a small shrug, adjusting his cufflinks. I heard they raised twice the expected amount. Your work must have helped. She studied him, his voice softer now, his expression almost tentative. The cold mask was cracking again, but she couldn't afford to fall into that warmth. Thank you, she said flatly. But that night was just work too. He smiled faintly, but there was sadness behind it. Of course. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Rebecca. Something in the way he said her name froze her in place. When she turned, his expression wasn't the usual calm. It was raw. Real. I didn't walk away because I didn't care, he said quietly. I walked away because you deserved something I didn't know how to be. Her throat tightened. And what's that? He met her eyes. Steady. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Just two professionals in a glass room, staring at each other like the truth might break through if they looked long enough. She swallowed hard. You don't get to rewrite this story now. He nodded slowly. Maybe not. But that doesn't mean I've stopped reading it. Her composure nearly broke. Nearly. But she caught herself. Don't do this, she said softly. Not here. I'm not trying to, he murmured. It's just... Seeing you again makes pretending impossible. And that's when she said the thing she'd been holding back since the gala. Then stop. Pretending. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Too honest. Too vulnerable. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. He took a step closer. Not enough to cross a line, but enough that she could feel the air change between them. Careful, she whispered, eyes locked on his. Someone might see, he smiled, slow, quiet, devastating. Then let them. For a second, time held still. 2 years of restraint, of unspoken longing, of professional distance, all balanced on that one fragile moment. Then the door opened. Her assistant peeked in. Rebecca, the investors are waiting for your approval. And just like that, the spell shattered. She stepped back, her voice brisk. I'll be right there. He nodded once, unreadable again. Of course. She turned to leave, but his reflection in the glass wall, standing still, eyes following her, lingered like a ghost she couldn't shake. That evening, the city lights outside her office window blurred through tears she refused to admit were there. She told herself it was exhaustion, pressure, nothing more. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same look, that quiet confession in his eyes, and deep down, she knew whatever they were pretending not to feel was becoming impossible to contain. The week that followed was chaos. Press interviews, deadlines, the new campaign launch. Rebecca buried herself in work until exhaustion dulled the ache that had taken root inside her. But pain like that doesn't fade. It waits. By Friday night, the city was alive again, glass towers glowing like embers, traffic humming beneath a bruised sky. Meridian Publishing was hosting its annual charity event, Words That Heal, a public gala, hundreds of guests, media coverage, and, of course, him, Jackson Hayes, the untouchable CEO whose name filled every headline. She hadn't planned to attend, but her team insisted. "You're the face of the new campaign," her assistant had reminded her. So here she was, standing under chandeliers, heart armored behind professionalism and lipstick, pretending the night didn't feel like fate circling back for its final move. When she stepped into the grand hall, the first thing she saw wasn't the cameras or the guests. It was him, standing near the stage, speaking to a group of sponsors. Perfectly composed, black tuxedo crisp, posture commanding. He hadn't seen her yet, but the second he did, the crowd, the lights, the sound, it all dimmed. His eyes locked on her like a magnet finding its match. And this time, she didn't look away. The tension was quiet, invisible to everyone else, but electric between them. Their gazes met, steady, unflinching. The same language they'd spoken since the wedding night, when everything began with a lie that felt too real. He took a sip of champagne, his expression unreadable. She smiled politely, the kind that hides every emotion worth protecting. But both of them knew. Tonight would end the silence. The speeches began. The host talked about compassion, resilience, rebuilding lives through stories. Rebecca listened, half present, her gaze occasionally flickering toward him, and every time she did, he was already watching her. It was subtle, careful, but it burned. Then the host called his name. "Please welcome our CEO. Mr. Jackson Hayes." Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed. He walked to the podium, confident and calm, but Rebecca noticed the tremor in his hand as he adjusted the microphone. No one else would. She always did. His voice carried through the hall, smooth, low, steady. He spoke about literature, healing, the power of connection. Every word calculated, every sentence flawless until it wasn't. Halfway through, he hesitated, looked up and found her. The pause stretched. The audience waited. Then his next words weren't from the script. "Sometimes," he began slowly, "stories aren't written, they happen. Unexpectedly. Against logic, against reason. They begin when two people stop pretending." Rebecca's chest tightened. The air seemed to vanish from the room. He continued, voice softer now, the crowd leaning in. "And maybe those stories don't always fit into neat endings. Maybe they start with mistakes or silence, or pretending to be something you're not, until suddenly, it feels like the most honest thing you've ever done." A murmur rippled through the audience, people glancing at each other, unsure if he was speaking metaphorically. But Rebecca knew. Every word was for her. Her pulse thundered. He was risking everything. His image, his control, his carefully built armor, just to tell the truth in front of everyone. When the speech ended, applause erupted, but she couldn't move. He stepped down from the stage, shaking hands, smiling for cameras, but his eyes kept searching until they found her again. And in that moment, she realized she couldn't keep running from this, so she did the unthinkable. She walked toward him. The crowd blurred, flashes of light, murmurs, the sound of a string quartet fading. Her heels clicked across the marble floor, one measured step after another. When she stopped, it was right in front of him, close enough to see the flicker of nerves in his eyes. "Beautiful speech," she said, voice steady. "Thank you." His reply was quiet. "Private, meant only for her. You meant it." "Didn't you?" she asked. He nodded once. "Every word," she swallowed. "You know what people will say if they realize that I meant every word?" His smile was faint but real. "Let them." Her chest rose with a sharp breath. "You always did like impossible things." He tilted his head. "Only when they were worth it." For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The noise of the gala returned around them. Laughter, applause, clinking glasses. But it all felt distant. Their eyes held across the chaos, steady and unflinching, like the calm at the center of a storm. Then someone from the crowd called his name. Flashbulbs went off. Reality rushed back in. She stepped back. "You should go," she whispered. "Not without saying this," he replied. His tone was low, urgent, breaking through every layer of restraint. I'm done pretending. You changed everything, and I can't unfeel it." Her voice trembled. "Jackson." He took a slow breath. "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." He turned to leave, giving her the choice he never had before. But this time, it was her who stopped him. "Jackson." He turned. Their eyes met again, the same charged silence, but softer now. "I never stopped feeling it either," she said quietly. "That night. It stopped being pretend a long time ago." He froze. For the first time, his composure completely broke. Just a flicker, but it was everything, and then she smiled. "A real one. Now go finish your gala, Mr. Hayes," she whispered. "We'll figure out the rest when no one's watching." He nodded, eyes bright, heart visible in every small movement, and walked back toward the cameras. She watched him go, the noise of applause surrounding them both, and for once, the ache inside her didn't feel like pain. It felt like the start of something honest. The event was over. The city was quiet again. Rebecca stood on the terrace outside, the skyline reflected in the glass tower windows. The wind was soft, the air cool. Behind her, footsteps. She didn't turn. She didn't have to. He stood beside her silently, no words, no performance. Just two people breathing the same air after too many almosts. For a long time, they just looked at the lights, the reflections, the movement below, the pulse of the world that had kept spinning while they'd been frozen in their own. Then he said it, quietly, honestly, without a trace of the CEO's confidence. "I don't want to pretend anymore." She turned to him. "Then don't." Their eyes met, the same look that started everything. Only this time, there was no pretending left to hide behind. The city lights shimmered around them, golden and endless, somewhere inside. Music from The Last Dance still played, and in that quiet, suspended moment, the lie that once began it all finally turned into the truth.